Hi, we're back with a part two of this episode, and we do highly encourage you to watch the previous one because that way you're going to be not lost in the conversation. So let us remind you what we talked about before. You're constantly like saving soldiers, you see blood, you see death, like you want to have a sense of normalcy.
Super cool, really young female drone operator. And all these guys in the comments were like, well, she's either a psyop, she's got her nails done, she can't be at the front.
I hate agreeing with Melania Trump and I hate giving her credit for anything, but like, dude,
I mean, we gotta
thank
give her
you.
this one. Like, that's like...
I love all the memes online of like Melania Trumpenko. And
Girl,
like,
I'd be living every day like it was a funeral if I was married to that man too.
Men
No.
near the front line go to bars. Men near the front line actually use prostitutes. And people don't question this.
I thought it was pretty good. I mean,
No,
you know,
I was like, we covered a lot. And I
We
think
did.
it actually fits in so well with what we're going to continue talking about, which is kind of
Absolutely.
like how people reinvent themselves with this invasion and like
sure.
the few like little good things that came out of it in a sense,
Yes.
which like obviously there is nothing good that comes out of the invasion. You know, the few
flowers
little
still
things.
grow through concrete though.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you become a medic? Because obviously that's not something that you were doing in the US, right?
No, so I mean, back home, I was also in corporate finance on the sales side. After university, you know, it was just a great job that paid the bills, and you know, I was doing volunteering, and so I did that for a long time, and then, I mean, to be completely like, the journey with Ukraine didn't start just on February 2022. It was 2014 for me, because on the US side, especially being Eastern European myself, we had a lot of involvement with the Ukrainian community as Lithuanians doing protests in Washington.
Yeah.
We talked to government officials, congressional reps during Baltic advocacy days about Ukraine. So like this journey was not like, you know, I didn't wake up on the day of the full scale invasion and go, I'm going to go help Ukraine. No, I had context already. It just changed the way I helped Ukraine, or the way I wanted to help Ukraine. So like my journey evolved in a lot of ways. The baseline is always trying to help people in the most positive way, as opposed to trying to insert myself with some kind of weird savior complex, which you've seen before around here. Becoming a medic was kind of like an evolution. It was like the final step, like for me.
Well, for you, the transformation was huge because,
Yeah.
I mean, like, here is a bit of an excursus into Rima's history. Rima was a housewife in Chicago. You know, aprons and all, and KitchenAids, and
Okay.
coffee machines. And
I am definitely not her anymore. I am no longer a housewife.
no, dude, like your transformation is huge, but also like obviously, I mean, you were always this person, right? Just sort of hiding in a Chicagoan housewife, but it's like such a stark. I'm sure that you like that people on social media find you sometimes from like your past that haven't seen you in like years, and they're probably like,
Who is she?
what?
Who is this person? I mean, and that's completely true, you know, and that was one of the harder parts, I think, also is like when you find yourself, you also figure out like what no longer works or what's no longer going to fit in your life. And so my walking away from my marriage, my safe home, my very comfortable life in the States to do this came more from a need to do like, I know I'm where I need to be.
Yeah.
Helping here, being a medic, the whole time, that commitment has never changed. It's just evolved.
Yeah.
It started as humanitarian response and then military aid, until finally I was like, I could make more of a difference. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do this the right way. And I'm going to go get certified. I'm going to take the classes I need to take, all of the courses, because I knew I would eventually enlist. That was always the goal. I wanted to try the humanitarian NGO side of it first, like the medical orgs, but that just really wasn't working. And so I just continued to get certificate after certificate. I'm still learning all the time, and I'm still in classes, because learning medicine and tactical medicine is a lifelong thing. You're a lifelong student.
Yeah.
And I got certified, but I started teaching first. Tactical medicine, because I got certified as an instructor. There just aren't enough instructors that teach in the English language for the foreign fighters that are coming in. So I spent about almost a year doing that until I was recruited into the unit that I'm in now. and teaching was very rewarding, but it was, and I've helped people in that way, you know, to save their own lives, save the lives of their brothers and their units. So like, you know, that was one impact, but like I wanted to also help because I had medic skills. We
Yeah.
don't have enough medics here. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the Cliff Notes version. And I thought about it for a long time. People like to romanticize this and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so glamorous." And I'm like, there is nothing glamorous about this job. And what
Yeah.
bothers me about people, like especially like civilians that come in here and they're like, "Well, we want to take the tactical medical courses." And I'm like, "Okay, but why?"
Yeah.
Like, what is your end goal here? Because my end goal was always to enlist and be a medic in the military. Once I finally made the decision, because I thought about it for a long time, and some of them are like, "Well, you know, we want to teach too," and I'm like, "But you don't have like, it doesn't make sense." And or like they're like, "Well, we want to work on civilian evacuations." And I'm like, "That is incredibly dangerous. Please think about it."
Crazy
before you do it."
question.
Yes.
Do you have a tourniquet on you?
Yes, actually, it's in
Do
my
you want to
purse.
demonstrate us how to use a tourniquet?
Certainly, I will go grab it. I was like, of course, I have a tourniquet on.
Yeah.
So in my purse, besides lip gloss, I have like a very austere IFAC in here, which includes an individual first aid kit, which includes a tourniquet.
Your purse reminds me of that like expanding tent in Harry Potter because like you have dog
absolutely.
treats for days. All of the dogs around me.
I am, in fact, the animal whisperer.
You are
So-
literally. I mean, like, for everyone watching this or listening to this, my boyfriend's dog is very wary of new people. He's kind of scared. He's a rescue. He loves Rima. He literally thinks she's a treat conglomerate.
I am.
And actually, she's the first person that my boyfriend let have his dog overnight during explosions because, you know, the dog got used to her so fast. And also, obviously, these two sausages that you either see or hear on
love
every
the
episode.
sausages.
Love her too. So anyways, after this brief interlude, here is a not tactical combat demonstration, but something that I think everyone literally should know, and not just in Ukraine, but in general, because you never know what's going to happen. And you should know how to use a tourniquet.
So, and one of the things, especially running an Instagram account that's purely for education, I'm not just doing it for civilians, or I'm sorry, for military. It's also for civilians who need to know how to use life-saving tools like a tourniquet. Also, do yourself a favor and never carry a piece of medical equipment that you are not trained on. So before you carry something like a tourniquet, make sure that you've gotten training. There's plenty of places that you can do that at. Like stop the bleed courses, things like that, because you need to understand why you need it and how to use it before you carry something in your bag that, you know, you don't know what you're doing with. So I'm going to do it on my arm, but basically your first pull on the arm has the most force. Okay. What you're trying to do, especially on yourself, this is not an easy process. So what you're trying to do is you need to not only stop the bleeding, you also have to stop the pulse that's in your wrist. So doing it one-handed is not easy, but you need to make sure that you secure the strap, because I got little arms, so like I got a lot of strap left. If that strap pops, then this whole thing is worthless. So having a tourniquet, so for example, if I have some sort of traumatic injury, because you have an artery that goes through your arm. So knowing that it's an arterial bleed, if your blood that's coming out of your wound is bright red, then and it's pulsing because your arteries push blood through your body, then chances are it's an arterial bleed, right? So you need to use a tourniquet to stop that bleeding. So I'm going to see now if I've stopped the bleeding process. I can't feel a pulse. The other test is if you can't get a finger under it, then your tourniquet is on tight enough. Okay. So here you can see like this is there, my skin is already turning purple a little bit. It's turning blue because I've stopped the bleeding in my arm. I've done this so many times in my classes that, you know, people are like, "Oh my God, you need to remove that." And I'm like, yes, it's fine. I've done this plenty of times. But this is a quick demonstration of how to do it on your arm. It's the same concept in the leg. It's just easier to test your pulse on your arm because it's within reach. On your leg, if you can't get your boot or your shoe off, then you're going to want to just do the finger test. Can you get any finger underneath it? If you can't, then it's on tight enough. But I have done, one of my posts on my educational Instagram is like mainly about what civilians should carry, especially here, like in the Western cities where you're getting slammed a whole lot more. especially nowadays, I would not leave my house without a tourniquet, medic or not.
Yeah.
Or like at least some sort of gauze, and a bandage, whatever you have room for, but at the very least a tourniquet. Like you can't like, it's just responsible behavior. But one more time, because I know that other medics are going to come at me for this, get the training first.
Yeah.
Find Stop the Bleed classes. If you Google Stop the Bleed in your city, you will find where you can do these classes. There's also something called TECC, which is just a little bit higher level for like civilian first responders and things like that. But I think it's one of those things that in Ukraine, we've passed the point where we can walk around without a tourniquet or some sort of like life-saving material. I mean, I think maybe last year and the year in Western cities, I think like maybe last year we could still get away with it without having it. But now, as it seems like things are intensifying and they're also happening during the day, you can't walk around without it. You need
there was
the
an
training.
air raid during the day today.
Yeah.
Like I was actually sitting at anyways, it doesn't matter where I was sitting, but or you know what, let's get into it because that's what we do in this podcast. We flip-flop between politics and important stuff and then life stuff. Totally. So my dear boyfriend, whom I very, very, very adore, went to France on a family matter for 2 weeks because he's from France, and he left me here with my dogs and his dog, who I also love dearly. However, I now spend 6 hours a day walking dogs and getting to dogs, and a couple of days ago, I noticed that his entire floor is covered in dog fur because his dog is shedding. It's shedding season. And he's also stressed that his dad is gone. And I was like, okay, do you have a vacuum cleaner? Because I'm probably going to clean it up. And then I looked at a sheer amount of fur. And I was like, you know what? I don't freaking have time to breathe. I don't have time to like play housewife here. So I had to I didn't have to bring, but I brought my cleaning lady over and she like did a fantastic job. And now I think I've convinced the man to have her over every 2 weeks to like clean up the fur. But point is that I was sitting there with the dog and with the cleaning lady because the dog is kind of wary around new people, and an air raid just randomly started, and that's just our days today, and that's lovely. Also, I do now have a tourniquet that I carry in my car because that's basically my purse. My car is my purse. And that's a tourniquet Rima gave me the other day because, our friendship is the sort where we were chilling and eating sandwiches, and then I randomly say at 11, hey, do you want to show me how to use a tourniquet properly?
100%. And that's, I would rather, especially as a medic and somebody who has this knowledge, I would much rather share it with the people around me rather than, and I do this all the time. Like anytime civilians are like, can you host a bleed stop class? Absolutely. Are you going to charge for it? No, because I personally don't believe that people should pay to learn how to save their own life. But that's my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
I understand that organizations and other folks need to keep the lights on and stuff like that. Yeah. But if you ask me, I'm going to teach you for free.
Yeah.
It's just how I
No,
am.
but I think it's also like such an important thing, honestly, like the fact that you've created your educational Instagram and the amount of like knowledge and the amount of stuff that you're putting out there is kind of like, it's amazing because like, I think it's become such a crucial part of life here in Ukraine. And honestly, with like all of the fascists rising everywhere else in the world, I think that like the best and the first thing that you should do for yourself is know first aid, and not like first aid in terms of like, oh, how to stop a choking hazard, but first aid in terms of like how to stop the bleed, how to treat wounds and injuries, because you don't freaking know. There's so many protests worldwide, and at those protests, like people get harmed, because cops are also like out of their mind and they use force and they like shoot rubber bullets at people and stuff. It's like you need to know how to protect yourself and you need to know how to save yourself in a situation like that. And I would even say like people assume that these courses are only like important for people in war zones, but like I hard disagree with that. I think like in this day and age, like you need to know first aid, period.
I think so. And that's just responsible behavior. I mean, in general, like everybody should know, we have a lot of, unfortunately in the United States, we have a lot of active shooter issues. Like in general, you should have first aid supplies either in your car or at least like maybe not on you per se, but at least like in your vehicle or somewhere,
somewhere nearby, somewhere within your reach. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that 100%. Again, Fascism is on the rise. We see protests everywhere. There are school shootings all the time in the US, unfortunately. And I think it's like become such an important thing and such a, like an important part of like life and society that it's just it is what it is. And I think that people are not paying enough attention to it and people are not taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
So I hope that, you know, your page and pages like yours get a lot more traction and get a lot more people like actually listening and reading than they do right now.
Well, and one of my friends who also is in the military, I'd shared how to build an IFAC, and I had shared what to put in your combat lifesaver bag on my private account, and you can't share from that. And so like one of the soldiers that is my friend and follows me was like, hey, I can't share this. Like, can you like, and I said, I know my account's private. I kind of posted it for all of you guys so that you would know, you know, what to do. And he's like, yeah, but I have so many people that would want to know, like other soldiers and stuff like that. And at that point I was like, okay, well, I can't not do this. Like, he's right. It really, there should be a public account. I write a blog on Buy Me a Coffee. Like, you know, all of this information is public, but like Instagram is our soundbite, right? So like if we have visual aids and like we write stuff out, like how to do like your IFAC, how to do your CLS bag, like other setups and stuff like that. But I need to be able to put it out in public. So like Instagram is another way to reach people. So if you've watched us thus far, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, what other things we have for social media, because I can't remember things all the time.
Anyways, if you don't want to lose us in the swarm of YouTube algorithms, please subscribe and also do tell us what you think. Also, we recently activated memberships on our channel, which help us greatly to continue producing this podcast. So if you would like to support us, please do sign up for our membership. Honestly, your story and the reason why I asked you to demonstrate it is because like this plays so much into the reinvention and sort of like, you know, changing the course of your life. Because when this like war started, right, for a lot of Ukrainians and for a lot of people around the world who came to Ukraine, this was like kind of a pivotal moment in their life where they completely changed their lives. And that's what I mean when I say like that there are very few but some positives, because I think that there are a lot of people that were sort of like not happy with where they were and weren't doing what they wanted to do. And this was like kind of like a leap for them that they took to see what they can do and what they're capable of. Like, I don't know, I know so many people also that were just like either living abroad and they're Ukrainian, or just like foreigners, or Ukrainians who were living here who were, for instance, in IT, and then they founded like these very like high tech sort of like far-fetched like fundraising platforms like Zyga Spa. It's a very great fundraising organization for the military that was founded in Lviv, and the guy who founded it was like he was like a really successful IT professional, and then he did this like platform and you can track every single donation and see where it went. And now he's in the military and his wife runs it and she's fantastic. They actually have an event on the 20th of July that I was invited to in Lviv, because it was kind of like meet the donors and meet the people that are behind Zyga and stuff like that. And I might go, but I don't know if I'm going to make it. But if you're in Lviv and you want to go, Zyga Spa has an event to meet the donors and to meet their team and to do a fundraiser on July 20th. So, and this is not advertisement. I literally just thought about this. And then I was also technically an IT professional in New York, right? Like when the full-scale war started, I was living a cushy life in a nice apartment in New York City. And I was working as a creative director for this like startup. And I don't know, if someone ever asked me if I ever planned on moving back to Ukraine, I would be like, no, not really. Because like my life was fully in New York and I was there for like, I don't know what, 14 years or 13 years at the time. I would never think that I would move to Ukraine, first of all, that I would be so happy here, because I moved away like 14 years ago. And I never thought that I would be a journalist. I never thought that I would be reporting in the political situation and doing political analysis, even though this was like something that I was interested in as a hobby my whole life. And I also really never thought that my knowledge of Ukrainian history, because I used to nerd out about it all the time, would really serve me anything. Because it's such a niche thing to be interested in, like Ukrainian history, you know? Like, honestly, like if someone told me in high school that this would be like an actual job and that explaining this to interested foreigners would be a thing, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, no kidding.
If someone told like 15-year-old me that like nerding out about Ukrainian history and actually knowing a lot of stuff about it would be useful, and that foreigners would be sitting there for hours on lives on TikTok listening and learning about Ukrainian history, I'd be like, get out of here. Like, you're crazy. Because it's A, such a niche thing. B, like when I first moved to the US, when I would say that I'm from Ukraine, people would either think it's a state in Russia, would not know where that is, or as one of my ex-boyfriends on our first date said, oh, so do you speak Ukrainese?
Oh, God.
But I mean, like, okay, to be fair, out of literally everything, like there are so few languages that end with ease, like Japanese, you
Yeah.
know? Like, why Ukrainians? I mean, it is my fault for deciding to date this man any further than that first date, but at least he was the only person who like thought we have our own language.
Oh, my God.
Talk about like, you know, talk about feeling very deprived as a nation, that you were like, oh my God, he knows we have a separate language.
Wow.
He thinks it's Ukrainians, but like, damn, he doesn't think I'm from Russia. Anyways, that was like, listen, that was like an upgrade in my eyes. He's now married to a Russian, actually.
Oh, God.
No, like, I swear to God, I find it so funny too, because like one of the biggest points of contention in our relationship when we were like, mind you, 20. We were like 20. I was 20. No, I was 21 and he was 22, right? So one of the biggest points of contention was that like he always imagined a family, right? Where like because he's from like a family, right? So he always imagined that like he would be like best friends with his like wife's dad and stuff, and they would like bro out and go on like, I don't know, trips and stuff. And my dad didn't speak English, so he had like a problem with the fact that he would never be able to like communicate with my dad. So jokes on freaking him. First of all, the girl that he's married to now, she's Russian American because I think she was born in America, right? Her mom is Russian born and her English is eh. She doesn't have a dad.
Oh,
And
boy.
I'm just like, you know what? This is the biggest like gotcha that has ever happened in a sense. But also like, why a Russian? Honestly, like it's been like 10 years. I don't care, right? But anytime like an ex-boyfriend of mine gets married to a Russian woman, I'm just like,
Can't account for taste.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, why would you downgrade?
I mean, anyways, you know, it's because you can't like, you know, you can't find a Ukrainian. This was a tangent if I've ever seen one. But yeah, I think like one of the things that I really admire about the fact about Ukraine and like people that come to Ukraine is how much they can reinvent themselves. And I keep using this word, but I don't like it because like I feel like it sounds like you just kind of like left your life and decided to be something and kind of like went in that direction. But in reality, it's just like people finding themselves and finding talents and like being at peace with themselves and finding their voice. Because I think like one of the things that I've always loved is talking. It sounds so funny, but it's just like I could explain things for hours, right? And it's so interesting how my career was so behind the scenes in a sense, where like I was behind a computer making these like beautiful things that people interacted with, and now I'm over here in front of this like on the screen explaining things to people for hours that are so nerdy and I never thought that people would be interested in, right? And it's such a like wild and weird shift that I like did not see coming ever. And I think that has happened to a lot of people where they found themselves in roles where that fulfill them that they have
Yes.
never thought they could do before. Similarly to how, you know, you went from a KitchenAid housewife to a tattooed badass gothic Barbie.
You know, I mean, if you told me 5 years ago that I would be a combat medic in a military that was not American, I would have been like, I think you're thinking about, maybe you have me confused with someone else. Like that was just, there's no way. I like, nope, not me. Like I garden, okay? I knit. I don't do like this is, and this, I'm dead
Okay,
serious.
Rima, but literally imagine us today went back in time 5 years and met us then and like talked to ourselves. I think I would think someone is playing a prank on me. Like, I'm sorry, but if someone told me like 5 years ago that I'd be living in Ukraine and Kyiv and I would be like, you know, just happy with it, and it was my own choice, I think I'd be like, are you okay?
I mean, 13-year-old me thinks I'm cool as fuck, but like, that's that's a little bit different.
Oh my God. A 13-year-old me would like so enjoy this transformation from
Right?
what I used to be.
Like, I could just hear my 13-year-old self going, wait, are we cool now? Like, that's, is that actually like, we're not nerdy and like autistic and can't like make friends? Is that, and I'm like, no, we're still autistic and we're still very nerdy, but we do have a few more friends now and a couple more tattoos. Like, that's,
We found a community of nerdy autistic people with tattoos who are
yeah,
cool.
like it's a wild thing. And I think sometimes like we focus on the negative aspects of reinvention where like we know there are a lot of people who came here to run away from
So
something
many.
and reinvent themselves. I wasn't running from anything. I was running towards something.
Yeah.
And like I think there's a big difference and we don't talk about that enough, the positive side. We hit on the negative all the time. And it's like there's so many like great stories
Yeah.
of like people that I know that were like, we're going to spend 3 weeks to a month here maximum and do what we can and to help and whatever. They're here now. It's year 3
Yeah.
and they're, teaching tactical medicine. They're doing great things. They're training soldiers. They're, that's one success story. We have other NGOs that have flourished out here, that, like people that
Yeah.
have found their voice. And unfortunately it came out of something incredibly ugly. But like I
Yeah.
said, even flowers grow out of concrete. So,
Yeah.
I think that's a super important thing is you have to remember that there is beauty in brutality and that is the same thing. There is beauty in reinvention.
I love the beauty and brutality comparison, but all I can think about when you say that is Jay Schnell. Oh God. Which is like a horrible example of a person who's doing like 55 different things here and doesn't know who he is or what he's doing or like why he's here.
Well, and that's just are we putting that in there? We're leaving that out, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is a problem. I mean, unfortunately, like he's a great example of that. Or like there are a lot of people sometimes here that are here that I'm like, I don't really get what your purpose is here. And remember, like we're in general, we never want to be a burden on an already burdened society.
Yeah.
So if we are here in this place, we need to make sure that we are adding, not subtracting.
Yeah, and that we're not like taking up space and taking up oxygen. But I also think that this like idea of reinvention is also like a very big part of Ukrainian existence in general. And I don't mean reinvention because I can already see Russian trolls being like, yes, you reinvented yourself and you're now like trying to pretend like you have history. No, I mean that we didn't have drones, we created drones.
Yeah.
Ukraine, we didn't have enough air defense systems. We created that massive network of drone interceptors that United 24 is like fundraising for, and they're fantastic. Anything that flies through where those interceptors are, it doesn't make it, and they can intercept both missiles and drones. It's like Sky Sentinel or something like that. It's incredible. We didn't have long-range weapons. We created long-range weapons. We didn't have enough supplies for this, and that. We just made them. It's like Ukraine constantly keeps innovating and constantly keeps coming up with new things and constantly keeps sort of like pushing through and like inventing things out of I don't know, we make so much with so little.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very big parallel to how this war has affected a lot of people, because the people that were able to teach themselves new skills and become someone useful to the society really truly did and really pushed through it.
Yeah.
And
I think so. And that speaks to the resilience part, not just reinvention, but resilience. Like, how do we come back stronger from something that's trying to beat us down all the time? So, okay, if we can't live life this way, then let's reinvent a way to live life that is more sustainable. And how can we be more useful? All the guys that like 3D print stuff, like that sort of thing.
Or like the kids that make drones at home, like they're at home drone kits, which is insane. Or vape batteries can be used to make drones, or like I forgot what it is because it's like lithium ion batteries. So we have all of these like little recycling stations for disposable vapes where people can bring them so they can be donated to be remade into something useful for the military. I love that. I absolutely adore that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's amazing. And I keep seeing like these new ways that like people are reinventing their lives to make it more sustainable, more positive. Like how can they be a part of the effort? How can they help? And like we're giving kids different things that they can do. And like it's great to at least give a purpose to that reinvention,
Yeah.
as opposed to it having a negative side where it's like, well, and again, running to something, not running from
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's the thing, like in Russia, kids are marching and like singing crazy USSR songs and like literally learning how to be in the military at like age 12. In Ukraine, kids are given like pathways where they can actually invent things and influence the whole country and help build new things for the country. Like, being able to build drones gives you like crazy engineering skills, and it's not like children who are doing them. I mean, like 18-year-olds and like, teenagers, like 17-year-olds who are helping, right? Like little kids take an IT path because they know that they can like code and they can do things that they can in the future that can be like very helpful for like information space and stuff like that. So we actually
Absolutely.
give them good career paths, and no one is like sitting there on a government level and being like, let's program children to want to be in the military. Like that's not how it happens. But speaking of programming and reinvention, it just hit me. Did you see that article that came out either yesterday or this morning in the New York Times that was called something like "The Pathway of Death"? What's left of where Ukraine invaded Russia?
Oh, the Kursk thing. Well, first of all, that journalist should walk into oncoming traffic, because that was probably one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. Imagine trying to romanticize and sympathize with the genocidal perpetrator of war and be like, oh my God, Kursk. Meanwhile, most of the eastern part of Ukraine is in ruins, and the suffering. Do you like, the thing that kills me about this kind of stuff is like the front line, the kids that live at the front line here in Ukraine that suffer from, they're watching their town every day. Russians get closer, but no, Kursk. The New York Times is already, I think, a crap publication in my opinion anyway.
Oh
But
my
that's
God,
just,
no, they've done so many articles that are awful. Like, I just did a quick search. And so this article is called A Landscape of Death, What's Left Where Ukraine Invaded Russia. The
vomit.
previous one was What to Know About Kursk, the Russian territory slipping from Ukraine's fingers. How Ukraine's offensive in Russia's Kursk region unraveled. And then there is a Kyiv Independent article that talks basically about beneath the problematic surface, the New York Times Kursk reporting reveals a deeper moral rot, which I do agree with because, like, dude, I read this article today, and to me, it sounded like straight as a page from like Kremlin's brainwashing rot, because it was basically like, yeah, Russia bombed this territory, but let us show you the pictures of poor Russian soldiers standing in destroyed Russian churches, because you're obviously not going to read past the headline, and this is what's going to stick in your head, that image. Russia bombed Kursk region, and Russia is fully responsible for all the damage and destruction that happened there.
Yeah.
There were also like straight up lies about like Russian civilians being scared to talk to the Ukrainian military and hiding in their basements, for 7 months straight. First of all, second of all, there's so many documentaries about Kursk because Ukrainians are not stupid, and we saw this coming.
Yeah.
And this like leads me to sort of, right, like, this is why people in the West are so susceptible to Russian propaganda, because they assume that it comes from Russian channels, but it doesn't. It comes from your biggest news correspondents. Like, there was this like whole outrage about the ruined Russian churches, which, by the way, I watched a fantastic documentary, one of many, on Kursk region like months ago, right? And one of the things that Ukrainian soldiers were actually doing is that they were doing an inventory of everything they would find in churches that was valuable or like culturally significant.
Yeah.
And they would have like these community outreaches where people from the community would come, itemize these lists, and put them in a safe space to preserve this cultural heritage of Russians, of the culture that came here to literally indignify and destroy our culture. We went there and protected it because we have morals. And so I know that this is a really fucked up thing to do from the New York Times article, because Ukraine actually like really preserved culture that we should want to destroy because it's literally destroying us. But anyways, like, I looked up, I saw, I think like Kaylin or someone else talking about this, right? That like, if you look up the New York Times articles about like Ukrainian churches or Ukraine destruction of Ukraine, right? There is zilch.
Yeah.
There's nada. There is nothing about like thousands of churches that have been destroyed in Ukraine through the Russian invasion, thousands of museums that were looted, thousands of like monuments and culturally significant
Yeah.
heritage that was just bulldozed over by Russia. And no one's talking about it, right? But the second there is a Russian church that was destroyed in Kursk region, the New York Times is calling it the landscape of death, what's left of like whatever after Ukraine's invasion. First of all, it was Ukraine's counteroffensive to deflect attention from that the invasion that Russia was conducting in Ukraine so that they could like force troops there, right? Russian soldiers ran away the second that Ukrainians came into Kursk without protecting any of the citizens. And that's like one of the first things that the people in Kursk were saying. And secondly, like, no, it's no one's fault but Russia's. If Russia didn't invade Ukraine, none of this would be happening. And again, Ukrainians were preserving Russian cultural heritage. They were helping Russian civilians, and no one was scared of them. Russia was the one bombing their own civilians, and the evidence to that is on Russian national TV, where they were saying that they will do everything necessary to smoke out Ukrainians out of there, even if that involves bombing the cities to the ground.
First of all, I think the New York Times has been pro-Russian this whole time in the war. All of their articles, very few articles from the New York Times have ever been pro-Ukraine. So I have my own issues with the New York Times to begin with. They are peddling a narrative that helps the perpetrator, and they should really be ashamed of themselves. But that's a whole other soapbox. In general, like, that's been the case anyway, where, you know, Ukraine has gone in and yes, they've preserved things, and you watch the culture of destruction that is Russia. That goes back so many centuries back, where like Russians have always had this imperialistic nature in general. So everything is seek and destroy. And it's like, and I've said this before and I will say it again, Russia is a cancer and everything it touches dies. And that's the truth. You look at all of these cities that are leveled into nothing because of Russia's destructive tactics. What I don't understand, and maybe this is because they like living this way, but they've leveled these cities. And I'm like, if you want to take over, you have literally scorched earth the entire country. There's nothing to take over except for burnt out land. What's the point, right? But so that tells you that it's got nothing to do with the natural resources, with the aesthetics or like the buildings or whatever, or the beautiful towns that they've destroyed. It has everything to do with the land grabbing.
Oh, it doesn't matter. But
they don't care.
But also most Russians that are being inserted into these territories come from like far remote regions of Russia where like their living conditions are no better than destroyed Mariupol for one, or like Severodonetsk or something. And like these Russians come there and it doesn't bug them because that's what their cities to a large degree naturally look like. It's destroyed wastelands of nothing, which is why they're okay with like leaving their homes and moving somewhere else because they don't necessarily care for them. And it's, I don't know. I mean, like, these types of things really bug me. The fact that the New York Times is literally like, I think they're one of the most dangerous publications on the market right now because they whitewash their propaganda. They make it sound like they're just being balanced in their reporting. They make it sound like they're trying to show two sides, that they're just like being unbiased. But they're not being unbiased. That article, honestly, like I woke up this morning and I chose violence. I was so enraged about this article.
I looked at it and I was like, this isn't real, and I'll probably comment on it later because unfortunately it is very real. And like, I think we can rage about this, and like I said, I understand that, you know, bitching is cheaper than therapy, but they're not going. The New York Times will not listen. We can scream at the wall, and it's literally just they're not listening to us.
Yeah.
It starts at the top in management, personally, and the management that allows them to publish these things.
I mean, like, this was the first image that I saw from the article, and honestly, it just drives me crazy. It's, you know, it's an Ahmad soldier. And also the humanization of Chechen soldiers in the Russian military, where they're like, they had to be taken away from their normal posting in the Ukrainian offensive to be here in Kursk with their people. First of all, the white Russians do not value Chechens by any means because it's a super grossly racist country from so many different extents.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to say that My favorite quote from this article was that when this Ahmad soldier was talking to the journalist, he was like, "This is the first time where I entered somewhere and I actually felt welcome, not treated like an occupier." And I'm like, that one-liner should have been your entire understanding of the whole situation. So this soldier tells you that going to Suja, which is not even true because they definitely did not greet him with open arms, because I have seen many a documentaries and all of these civilians were so disappointed with the Russian army bombing them and Putin just leaving them there to die. But anyways, I guess you gotta survive somehow. So now you're like back on Russia's side. But point is that when this dude said that this was the first time that he's come somewhere where he was welcome, shouldn't that ring a bell? Shouldn't that explain the entirety of the unbalanced situation? You have a Russian soldier telling you that everywhere he's gone before this in Ukraine, he was treated like an occupier and was unwelcome, and people were closing the door in his face and people didn't want to see him there. Shouldn't that tell you everything you need to know? That the only place he's felt quote unquote welcome was Suja, which is literally in Russia.
Yep.
Like,
clear as day, you would think.
I just find it hilarious how the whole article is about how bad this whole like thing about Ukraine was, right? And she's like she's trying to humanize him because he came somewhere he's welcome. And I'm like, are you joking? This quote is not about humanizing this man. This is such a gross misinterpretation and like weaving of a narrative, because literally how can you hear someone say this is the first time I feel welcome during my entire service of 3.5 years in this war, because everywhere else I've gone, aka Ukraine, people were slamming the door in my face, and you're like, poetic. This is such a relatable moment. And on that note, that's all we have for you for today. Rima, would you like to do an outro?
Well, like we said in the beginning, fresh hell awaits us every day, but bitching is still cheaper than therapy. So come sit with us as we bitch next time on Unmasking.